He says, they asked him, what will your legacy be? And his exact response was, that I lived for God. Thank you for teaching this guy what life is about. Real quick, a funny story. Some of you played golf today, others tried. But anyway, he was out playing golf one day in South Florida, and a buddy of mine was with him and taking him around on the cart and everything, and all of a sudden this cart comes by, big wheels, all decked out, you know, the whole radio thing, and all of a sudden the cart just turned around and came back, and then all of a sudden Michael Jordan stepped out of the cart. This is no lie, and he goes, that's Coach Bowden. Michael Jordan stopped his golf game to get a picture with Coach Bobby Bowden. That's the type of man that Bobby Bowden is. I'm going to have you come. I am done. Coach, the stage is yours, and thank you for being you.
Thank you very much. You might have got that story backwards. That was me that drove by and I saw him. This is not what I expected. I thought I was speaking tonight to just an FCA group, which I've done hundreds of times, and it's very easy. Then I get here and I find out it's not just FCA, it's your organization as well. But that doesn't make any difference. I'll have to change some of my talk from FCA to God. That's my favorite subject anyway. My wife and I live in Tallahassee, Florida. That's only about 30 miles from here, down south. And I'll always get this point across. If you're going to Tallahassee, if you come in from the west, Pensacola, Panama City, Tallahassee, Florida, if you're coming in from the west, you have to go through a little town called Quincy. Now, what you have to realize, you have to go right down through the middle of town of Quincy. And they have a traffic camera up there right downtown, right by the square. And if you go through there and you go over 35 miles an hour, they're gonna hit you with a pretty good fine. You know what? So about a month ago, I was driving back from Panama City and came to Quincy. And I knew the camera was up there. And as I approached it, it snapped my picture. I saw it flashed. I said, now hold it. I'm going 34 miles an hour, and that thing took my picture. You know what? And I said, that's dadgum ripoff, you know? So I circled again, cut it down to 30. Click, click. I went around 5 times, I cut it down. I cut it down 5 degrees every dadgum time I went around it. It took my picture 5 times. I got out of my car. I pointed my finger up at that camera because I knew it was getting me. I said, I ain't gonna pay y'all a dadgum penny. This is a ripoff. I did not break the speed limit, you know. Then I jumped in my car and went back to Tallahassee. 2 weeks later, I get a letter from the sheriff's office over in Quincy. I got 5 tickets for not wearing a seatbelt. But I just wanted to warn you. My wife, Ann, and I are from Birmingham, Alabama. I've coached at Florida State. I coached there for 34 years. I've been out of coaching now for about nine years, you know. And Ann and I had 6 children. We had a daughter, 4 sons, and then another daughter. Now we got 21 grandchildren, and we got 9 great-grandchildren, you know. And, you know, when Ann and I were raised up in Birmingham, I was raised during the Depression. I bet none of y'all were. I got to be the oldest guy. I got to be the oldest guy in here. I turned 9 in a month. But anyway, living there so long, when I told you I was raised during the Depression. That's the 30s. I was born in 29. It was during the 30s we had the Depression. 1 out of 3 men lost their job. And that was happening all over the world, not just the United States. And my granddad, whose wife had died and was probably about 70 years old, he lost his job. Mother said he went to the bank to get his money, and the bank was bankrupt. So he lost everything he had. Well, back in those days, what'd they do? They move in with family. Nowadays, it's assisted living, but we didn't have that back in the 30s, you know. And so Granddaddy moved in with us, and in my room we had 2 beds. Granddaddy slept in that bed, and I slept in this bed. Then later on, my uncle lost his job. He moved in with us. He had 2 boys about my age. They slept with me. Granddaddy slept there, and me and those 2 boys slept here. I really never slept alone until I got married. Y'all been through that, hadn't you? Y'all been through that. But my wife, Ann, she used to always accuse, when I was coaching every year, and Bobby, you love football more than you do me. You ever hear that from your wife? You love football more than you do me. I said, college or pro? One more story. Y'all remember Burt Reynolds? Burt was a good friend of mine. Burt played at Florida State University. I didn't play with him. I didn't coach him. He was here before I came. Burt, first year, played a lot of football for Florida State. Then he had a knee injury and had to drop out. And then he tried to repair it. Back in those days, they couldn't do a good job like they do today. And he tried to come back the next year and hurt it again. So he was out. And, of course, then he went to New York, studied acting, and went into Hollywood, you know, and made his fame there. Burt loved to come down and watch Florida State play. Every year I coach, he would call me, Coach, I'm coming down to see the ball game Saturday. About once a year, he'd come in to Tallahassee, fly into Tallahassee, come by my office. We'd go sit in my office, lock the door, and then he and I'd shoot the bull. When you saw him in a movie, that's him. I mean, he was just like he acted, boy. He loved life, and he loved to have a good time. And so anyway, Burt called me in 1982. We were going to a bowl game. It was probably about December, which means we had about a month to get ready for that game. He called me one night, Coach Bowden, this is Burt Reynolds. Yeah, Burt, how you doing? We shot the bull a bit. Then he said, Coach, I don't like our uniforms. I said, I don't like them either. He said, let's get some more. I said, Burt, they cost too much money. We add about 20 pair a year and just keep playing in the same uniforms. You know, I mean, if we got new uniforms for the whole team, we had to buy 130 pair, and that costs a lot of money. I'll buy them. Oh, you will, huh? So I went to see our athletic director. Can an alumni pay for our uniforms? Yeah, it's okay. So I called Burt back. So we bought 150 pair of brand new uniforms. In fact, he and I designed the gold pants, the garnet jersey, the gold helmet with a spear on it, you know. And that's the uniform we played in for years. Now I go to 1988. Same deal. We're fixed to play in a bowl game. It's December. Got about 3 or 4 weeks of practice. get that phone call. Hey, Coach, let's get some new uniforms. I said, Bert, be honest with you, I like the ones we got, and everybody else likes them. You know what? He said, well, let's get some white uniforms. Now, he wanted white. Why? Because that's what they wore when he played, you know. So, okay, you buy them, right? Yeah, okay. So we bought 130 pair of white uniforms, and we wore them for a couple of games. You know, we'd kind of mix up. And anyway, now we go to about 2006. 2006. We're fixing to play Alabama in Jacksonville, Florida. And Bert calls me again. Hey, let's get some uniforms. I said, Bert, we don't need any uniforms, man. We got white, we got black, we got garnet, we got gold. We can mix everything. We don't need any new uniforms. He said, well, I want to get the boys something. What can I get? I want to get them something they want more than anything. I'm going to send you $50,000, and whatever the boys want, you get it for them. I said, okay. So he sends $50,000. Then that Saturday rolls around. We're in Jacksonville. He flies into Jacksonville, comes by my office, my room, and we sit and talk a little bit. And he's excited about what he got. What he would do is come down and watch and see what he got him. You know, he'd watch the boys. So when it was time to go out and warm up, I'd take him with me. We'd go out, and as long as I took him to the middle of the field, he's okay. If I let him outside that fence, baby, he can be signing autographs all day long. So I had him out on the field. We went out on the field, and he was sitting there observing our boys when they would run by. Hey, is that new helmets? You get new helmets for them? No, those are the same ones we've had, Bert. Another guy comes by. Oh, we got brand new pants. Got those new pants, you got them? No, those same ones we've always had. How about that gold helmet? Is that what I got them? No, that's not. Well, what did you get them? I told you to get them whatever they needed the most. I said, I did. I gave it to the officials. As I mentioned to you earlier, I've got to change my talk from what I had planned, because I had planned to talk just FCA, but that wouldn't be hitting everybody. So I'm going to tell you a story. Would you mind me telling you a story of how God answered my prayer? I'm going to tell you a story of how God answered my prayer. When I was 13 years of age, I got rheumatic fever. I had to go to bed. I stayed in bed a year. I had to drop out of school, couldn't go to school, couldn't lift anything heavy because it was a heart disease. And back in those days, they thought about 40 or 45 years of age is about the lifespan of rheumatic fever. And so I remember sitting on my bed one day. My mother walked in the room, and Mother was a Christian woman. She said, Bobby, do you believe in prayer? I said, yeah, Mom, I believe in prayer. She said, why don't you ask God to heal you? You know, and I'd probably already asked him about 50 times, you know. But I said, Mom, I've asked God to heal me. And I had made this promise, God, if you will heal me, I'll spend all of my life trying to serve you. Not knowing how, but trying to serve you. 2 years later, I go to a heart specialist. He says, hey, Coach Bowden, your heart's okay. It's got some scar tissue, but it's strong. If you want to play ball, you can play ball. Oh, boy. I went out for my high school team there and made it and ended up starting the last 2 years. Graduated, went to the University of Alabama. And when I went to Alabama, they had a rule back in those days. This is before y'all's time. But all over the country, they had a rule. If you were married, you can't have a scholarship. That was pretty common. Well, I got married, you know, as a freshman. Ann Bowden, I had been dating her for 2 years, and she was already 16. Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. It was time. It was time. you know. So she and I ran off and got married. Now that was 70 years ago, by the way. And same woman, 70 years, you know. But anyway, I had to give up my scholarship because I was married. So I transferred, went up to school up at Howard College, which is now Sanford University. Played up there for 4 years. Ran track, played baseball, and played football. But while I was playing baseball at Florida at Sanford, it was my last year. I was a senior. It was 1952. 1952, that's the year I graduated, my last year of football. And I had never hit a home run. I'd hit them when I was younger, little leagues, but since I got to college, I couldn't get one over the dadgum fence. I couldn't hit a ball up. My ball went about that high, you know. And every now and then it would go through and I'd get a hit. And we were playing Auburn up in Birmingham there. And I'm up at the plate. Yeah, War Eagles, boy. War Eagles, man. I was raised on Alabama and War Eagle football, you know. But I'm up at the plate, and the pitcher throws one in there, and I ripped that dadgum ball, and that thing comes flying off my bat, boy. But it ain't any higher than that, you know. But it goes past the shortstop and the second base. It goes through. And I can see it went through, so I said, dang, I'm going to get 2 out of this thing. So I throw that bat down, I run down, I hit first base. All I want to do is circle first base and kick it with the side of my foot where it takes too long to step on that bag. Just kick it and get on down to second. So as I'm running to second, I can see the ball. It got through the center fielder and the left fielder. It's going to go to the wall, man. So hell, man, I'm going to get me another base, you know. So I hit second base and I start down to third. Well, when I was going down to third, I can't see the ball because now it's behind me. But I got a third base coach down there. And he's going to tell me what to do. He's going to give me this. That means hold up. You're okay, just hold up. Don't try to go past here. You know? Or he's going to give me this. It means slide, baby, hit the deck. It's going to be tight. You know. Or he's going to give me this. That means go home, baby. You know, and I'm thinking, oh my golly, I'm going to get me a dadgum home run. And I hit third base, and I start down that third base line to home. The catcher moves out on the third base line about a yard in front of the dadgum home plate. He's going to block me from getting in there. I can't go around him because if you get out of the baseline, you're out, you know. And so, boy, I'm coming in there hard. And the center fielder picks the ball up, throws it to the shortstop. Shortstop fires it home, and I got to race with that ball. Who gets that young home plate? As I get to that catcher, I hit him as hard as I could hit him, you know. And the ball hits his mitt about the same time as I hit him, and the ball bounces out and over on the ground. I reach over the top. I hit home plate with my hand, and the ump said, "You're safe. That's a home run." And I was excited. Man. I got up dusting the old red mud off my dadgum uniform. My team came over the bench, and we did not have high fives in 52. We didn't have high fives, so we just shake hands with everybody, you know. But anyway, the first baseman yells to the catcher, "Throw me the ball." You can imagine what's going to happen. You had it happen too, didn't you? Catcher takes the ball, throws it to the first baseman. He touches first base, and the ump said, "You're out. You missed first base." You know, 70 years ago, I still think I got it. But anyway, I never got that home run, by the way. Never got a home run. But anyway, I was out because I didn't touch first. I got second, I got third, I got home, but I didn't touch first. Now, the moral to that story is this. And if I could get any point across to you today, this would be the one I'd want to get across. Picture yourself up in the sky looking down at the baseball infield. First base, second base, third base, home plate. Second base, that's all those good things you've done. You know, I've done some good things. I've done some bad things too, but they don't count. But I've done some good things, you know. And so that's what, and I touched that. I got that. Then I came down to third base. Third base is all those good things you've won and done, like he mentioned a while ago, national championships, conference championships, coach of the year, this and that. That's third base. I got third base too, see? Then home plate down here, if you hit that baby, it can be a home run, you know. And I got it. But I never got a home run. Why? Because I missed first. I missed first. What is first base? Jesus. Or God. That's first base, you know. And the moral of that story is simply that. If you plan to go to heaven, which I hope you do, you have got to touch first base. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how much money you give to the church. I don't care how much you attend to the church. If you don't touch first base, you don't make it. Does that make sense to y'all? It's a good little old story in it. And in life, you know, you go through life. Now, like I say, I'll be 90 in a month, before a month. You know what? My life is behind me. Y'all's life is ahead of you. You spent some of it, but you still got a lot ahead of yours. Mine's behind me, you know. And by looking back, I can see exactly how God answered my prayer. And I'm going to tell you how he did. I hope I don't bore you. I finished high school. I went to college. When I finished college, my last ball game, the athletic director at my school came up to me and said, "Bobby, if you'll go get your master's degree, we'll hire you next year." Man, I got a dadgum job. You know, a lot of folks that graduate from college and can't even find a dadgum job, you know. But here I am. All I got to do is get my master's, and I've got a job. So I go get my master's, you know. Thank you, God. God got me that job, you know. I coached there 2 years as assistant coach. Then I get a call from the president at South Georgia College, who I never heard of. "Coach Bowden, we're looking for a head football coach. Would you be interested?" "A head coach? Yeah, I'd be interested." And we'll come down and get an interview. So my wife and I drive down to Douglas, Georgia. We get interviewed. The president said, "Go home. I'll call you next week. I want to interview a couple more people." The next Thursday, he called me. "Coach Bowden, we want you as our head coach. We voted last night to have you as our head coach." And he said, "We want you to be the head football coach, athletic director, and head basketball coach." Now, don't laugh. Usually when I say basketball, everybody starts roaring, you know. So I coached basketball my first year. And we didn't do too good, you know. 11-11. You know, that ain't all that bad. But, you know, we lost 11 on the road, lost 11 at home. But I was the athletic director, so I fired me. Went and hired a basketball coach, you know it? But anyway, I stayed there 4 years. We won state championship first year, state championship second year, state championship the third year. Fourth year, I think we came out second. And the president called me in one day. "Coach Bowden, we're going to drop football. We're all losing money. Everybody in the conference. We had about 6 or 7 teams that played football back in those days. But everybody losing money, so we're going to drop football. You can stay here as baseball coach and AD. Well, I want to coach football. But anyway, folks, that's been a long time ago. And it might have been 2 weeks, it might have been 2 days later, it might have been 3 days later, it might have been a week later or 2, but not over that. I get a call from Samford University. Coach Bowden, we're looking for a head football coach. Would you be interested? Oh, gosh, yes. So I go and get interviewed and get the job. Now, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3 jobs. I didn't apply for them. The only way I can count for that, it's God's work. God was getting me jobs, you know what? And so when I went to Samford as head football coach, we had 4 good years. We had the best record they ever had there. And they had that year, to end of the year, 1962, they had the Atlanta Quarterback Club. Had one of the most prestigious quarterback clubs in the nation. And they invited all the major head coaches in the South to come to that banquet. They didn't invite small college coaches, and I was a small college coach. So, but they invited the coach at Alabama, the coach at Auburn, the coach at Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida, Miami, over to Louisiana. There were 17 major head coaches there, and I got invited. Now, how in the world did I get invited? I was at a small college. I got invited because the president of that club went to school. Where do you think? He went to my school, you know. So he wanted his coach there. So I got to go. So I'm sitting up there with all them big-time guys, you know. And boy, I'm excited as I can be, you know. And guess who they set me next to? A coach named Bill Peterson. Bill Peterson was the head coach at Florida State. I ain't heard of him either. You know, I ain't heard of him either. But he and I get to talking. He says, I'm looking for an assistant coach. Would you be interested in coming to Florida State? My wife and I had decided I needed to get into a big school if I ever expected to make it in a big school. So I said, yeah, I'd be interested. He said, well, come down for an interview. So Monday I went down for an interview and got the job, you know. I didn't apply for it. That's the 4th job I got I didn't apply for. It's an answer to prayer to me, you know. So anyway, I go to Samford. If I don't get mixed up. I'm getting behind here somehow. Oh, so I coach there at Samford and get the assistant job at Florida State. I'm assistant coach for 3 years. You ever had a job you really wasn't happy with? That's kind of the way I was. I was at Florida State and nothing was happening. I'm saying, man, I'm going to get lost in the shuffle here. You know what? So I had 2 jobs offered me. One was in Auburn. The other was at West Virginia University. My wife and I decided, let's go to West Virginia. I can recruit Pennsylvania and Ohio and New York and Virginia and increase my awareness of other states. So we decided to go to West Virginia. So we go to West Virginia. I'm assistant coach there for 4 years. We play in the Peach Bowl. We play South Carolina. We beat South Carolina. And after the game, the head football coach, Jim Carlin, calls all of his coaches back in the dressing room. We're all thinking, what the heck does he want? We want to go home. You know, usually after a bowl game, we take off and usually have about a month off. And so we have a meeting. He says, coaches, I'm leaving. I'm going to Texas Tech as a head coach. Now, as assistant coach there, and he's leaving, what should I do? I should run to the AD and tell him I want that job. I should run to the president and the committee. They're all there at the game, and tell them I should like to be the head football coach here. But I couldn't do that. You know why? My daddy was dying in Birmingham, Alabama. So Ann and me and 6 kids, we took off for Birmingham. And what thought was going through my mind? Bobby, you just lost that job. You ain't going to get it now. Somebody else is going to get it, because they're going to have a chance to try to get it. Well, so what? So I want to see my daddy. So I go home, I see Daddy. I get up the next morning. I get a phone call about 9 o'clock. Coach Bowden, this is Red Brown, the athletic director at West Virginia. We met last night, and we want you to be the head football coach at West Virginia. That's 5 jobs I got, and I ain't applied yet, you know what? But to me, I just kept thinking, God must be working all this out. Well, I coached up there for 6 years, and we went to a couple of bowls. I get a call from Florida State. Florida State they went 0-11. They went 1-10. They went 3-8. How come I want to go down there? They're not winning any ball games. And so Ann and I thought about it a long time. At the last moment, we decided, let's go to Florida State. So good, we go back down to Florida State. Then I coached there for 34 years. We won over 300 games at Florida. We won over 300 games at Florida State. No other coach has ever won that many at one school except Joe Paterno. Joe and I won 300 games at our schools, And we won a couple of national championships, a lot of conference championships, had a lot of All-Americans, we went to 28 straight bowl games while I was a head football coach. But anyway, you see what I'm trying to say to you. I made a pledge to God, if you will heal me, I'll do my best to serve you. And I have tried to serve him. Now listen, I hadn't obeyed all the time. I'm just, I can say I am a Christian. I'm a Christian because I believe in Christ. Not because I deserve it. Not because something I did, but something he did, And so God answered all my prayer and kept my jobs going, I hope I didn't bore you with that. I had to find something different to tell you instead of FCA. But anyway, it's nice to have a Savior. When I was young, I had to have a Savior. I couldn't make it without a Savior. You know what? So I accepted Christ as my Savior. And what am I assured of? Eternal life. Living forever. While we're here on this earth, it's just, that's temporary. That's temporary. That's not our home. Our home is in heaven or hell. And I have been guaranteed I will go to heaven because I accepted Christ as my Savior. And my prayer would be that everyone else has done the same thing. Let me tell you one last story. Am I going too long? Okay. Proverbs 4:23. You ever read Proverbs? Yes. You don't know how to raise your family? Read Proverbs. Read Proverbs. Proverbs 4:23 I have spoken on hundreds of times at banquets. It says, keep thy heart diligent in diligence, because out of it comes the issues of life, And when you think about it, everything you do begins with a thought. Then that thought becomes words. Then those words become action. Then that action becomes your habits, You're known by your habits. People know you by your habits, Then your habits decide your character. And your character decides where you will spend eternity, And so keeping your heart diligently is so important. 1939. Yeah, I was leaving y'all one. 1939, the University of Illinois was playing the University of Michigan. The University of Michigan was the #1 football team in the nation. The year before, 38, they won the national championship. And they're fixing to play Illinois. Now, the only thing is, Illinois hadn't won a game. They hadn't won a game. I heard the coach at Illinois make this talk back in 1954. I've told it 100 times since then, you know. But he told the story. He said, we had the worst team I ever had at Illinois. We couldn't beat nobody. We opened up the season, we tied Peoria. Nothing and nothing, you know. Then we lost the next game and the next game and the next game. Then we're going to have to play Michigan. Golly, man. Coach said they practiced that week. It was the sorriest practice they ever had. You know, their captain was named Mel Brewer. I spoke up in Illinois one time, and it happened to be his hometown. They reminded me when I told them his story that he was from there. Mel Brewer's mama died. His mama died. He got to go home. Coach sent him home, said, you go home, take care of home, you know. So he has to go. Now, he was the only spirit that their team had as the leader, and he's gone. Coach said that's the worst week of practice he ever had. Said, we're going to get killed this week. So anyway, Friday night before the game, Illinois took their team outside of town. They stayed at a hotel where they get the boys away from the girlfriends and all other people that would distract, you know. And they were sitting in a room like this, and all these tables right here, the boys were eating supper. Coach is up here going over the black. Do y'all know what a blackboard is? Y'all do remember blackboards? And kids nowadays, they don't even know what a blackboard is, boy. But anyway, Coach is up here going over instructions for tomorrow's game. Kids are sitting out there bored to death, you know. Then Coach gets through, and he starts giving them tomorrow's game plan. The back door opens. Mel Brewer sticks his head in the door. Men, let me say this before y'all say anything. I want to thank you for those beautiful flowers you sent my mother. I want to thank you for the cards and letters you wrote my mother. And I want you to know, if y'all think I came back to get beat tomorrow, you're crazy. Coach said you could have heard a pin drop. And so anyway, they went out the next day. You can imagine what happened, can't you? Illinois upset the #1 football team in the nation. You know it? And that's one of the biggest upsets ever in college football. You have upsets every Saturday, but that one stands up with one of the tops ever, you know. And but the question is this: is the Illinois team that hadn't won a game, hadn't even scored, is that the same team that beat Michigan? Well, it's not the same team. It's not the same team. They wear the same uniforms. They have the same muscles, same bodies, same minds, but they're not the same team because the issues of life come from the heart. Thank all of you.
Coach said that he will answer a couple questions. We have a few minutes, and so I'm going to help facilitate that a little bit. And then afterwards, we're going to come down off the stage, and I know you're going to be going to dinner and things like that. If we need to get Coach going quickly to a couple other things, but if you wanted to take a quick picture as a group, like 5, 6, 7, well, that could happen. But the biggest thing is we just need to honor his time and so forth. So is there any questions, any FSU fans out there, anything, any questions? Just stand and raise your hand and speak loud.
All-time favorite, come from behind victory.
All-time favorite, come from behind victory.
Can I just tell you the all favorite come behind tie? Let's talk about the tie, right? We're playing the University of Florida at Tallahassee. We're in the top 10, and so are they. In the fourth quarter, with 10 minutes to go, Florida State has us 31-3. We tied up. We end up 31-31. It was just like a win to us, you know. That's my favorite.
Very cool. Someone, yeah, right back here.
Other than Deion Sanders, who's the most talented or gifted player in the NFL? Other than Deion.
Other than Deion Sanders, the most gifted player you ever saw.
Well,
In college or
Deion
NFL?
would have been a dadgum good answer, you know it. But maybe Charlie Ward. Maybe Charlie Ward.
Oh, hold on. Anybody, NFL or college? Anybody, any college team,
Who is the best I ever coached? Is that what he said?
ever seen?
The best I ever have seen, best player I've ever seen. My favorite was a guy named Charlie Trippi, who played for the University of Georgia back in the 40s. He was, at his time, he was the best football player I ever saw. And I got to meet him one time, you know, and got his autograph. Now, I'm sure there's been a lot more others since then because athletes are so much better today. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, you know, but he was always my favorite.
Sounds like the opening to $6 Million Man. Yeah, right here.
What's the difference between a good team and a great team?
What is the difference between a good team and a great team? The big thing is team. I used to tell my players this. Anytime we were playing a team that have better players than us, now they should win because I always felt like whoever's got the best player is going to win. And they normally did, but there are upsets. But when we would play somebody that had better players, I used to tell my team, man, it's not the best players that win, it's the best team. If we can play as a team, we can beat them. Good question.
Just a couple more. Right over here.
Is there a specific coach that you enjoyed beating most throughout your career?
What's his
A
question?
specific coach that you enjoyed beating more throughout your career.
I tell you, just winning any of them makes you happy, you know. But Coach Spurrier would have to be big as in here. Yeah, we beat him, but he also beat us. But that was big because FSU boosters probably rather beat Florida than anybody else, you know.
Coach, what's the best advice you give another coach coaching a team?
What's that?
What's the best advice that you would give another coach coaching a team?
The first thing I would tell him, don't take any shortcuts. Obey the rules. Obey the rules. You see, if there's a player out there I want, and this other guy wants him, I'll give him $10,000 if he'll come here. Now that's against the rules, but that does happen. See, now that's not fair. Don't do that, you know. Always abide by the rules. That'd be my starting place. And then try to make your practices harder than the game. Make your practice harder than the game. So when they get in the game, it's not as tough as it was on Thursday or Wednesday, you know. That would be the advice I would start with.
What's the one loss in your whole career that still keeps your mind going back?
The one loss in your whole career that keeps your
She,
mind going back.
she asked me what's the worst loss in my mind, and that's an easy answer, because I had it one time. The first year I was a head coach at West Virginia, we played our biggest rival. West Virginia's biggest rival was Pitt. We played at Pitt. All the West Virginians went up there and sat on that side. We got ahead of them 35-8 at the half. Everything we did turned into a touchdown. We come out the second half, we can't make a first down. And they start pecking away, and they ended up beating us 36-35. That was definitely the worst I ever felt, you know.
Why do you love football so much?
What's
Why
that?
do you love football so much?
Why do I love football? When I was born, my house, until I was 5 years old, backed up to a high school football field up in Birmingham. We moved. And when we moved at the bottom of the hill from a college football field. So every time I'd go to school, grammar school, I had to walk across that campus, down to my school, walk back across that campus. They'd be practicing football. I'd walk by it, go home, put my pocket full of peanuts, give me an apple, walk back up at the school and watch them practice and play around on the dummies. You know, so I did that till I was 18. So I think you ask a good question. I think the fact that I was around it all the time, it just kind of led me into it. And then, when I got that first job offer, go get your degree and we'll give you that started me off, you know, and that's what I did. And if they hadn't have offered me a job, I might have, my daddy had a real estate business and he wanted me to come there with him. I might have gone that direction if it had not been for that.
We got one more right here.
Coach Bowden, what would you say to those who might lose faith throughout the course of their journey? How would they be ignited? What would be your advice?
What was that?
People losing faith throughout their journey, what would you share with them how to reignite it?
Well, that's a very good question, and I'm sure it's faced over and over again. In other words, to be a Christian, you've got to have faith. I've got to believe in something I can't see. You know, if I could see Jesus standing there or God stuck his head out of the ceiling there, I could believe, that'd be easy to believe, you know. But it's believing in something you cannot see, you know. And when I look back at the things that happened to me, I mean, I feel sure there's a God. And I'm sure he hears us, you know. And he says, I want you to talk to me. I want you to ask me. The reason you don't have is you don't ask. I'm asking, baby. But I think having faith in something you can't see, if you don't have that, you ain't going to make it.
We're going to take this one and then her, and then you'll be the last one.
And when you were having like all your success, what helped you get to that next mountain?
When we were having our success, getting good players, we in the 90s, that decade, we won more games than his team had ever won in 10 years, you know. We're getting all the good players. We're getting great players. And that's my philosophy in coaching was very simple. He who gets the best players is going to win. And that usually happened. Now, a coach can blow that. You know that, you know. And but if I got better players than you, I'm gonna probably whip you. If yours are better than me, you could probably gonna whip me.
This young lady right here, and then
I just kind of wanted to ask, after her question, when you had that loss, the 35-36, what did you do to move forward? What helped you, keep focused to keep moving forward?
Yeah, it's a good question, hon. Well, you have to realize when you get into coaching, you're not going to win all your games. You might as well accept that fact. You know what? And then when you get beat like I did, you know, they're ready to hang me, boy. They're ready to run me off, you know. And I had to decide, hey, Bobby, do you want to stay in this game or you want to run? You know, and I remember I'm going to stay with it, you know. Now, what happened is the next year, no, that was my first year. Yeah, 4 years later, we had a good year, won a bowl, and I left and went to Florida State.
But you made a decision to stay in the game.
Yes, I made a decision to stay in the game, you know, and thank goodness it never happened again. Well, I'll tell you what I learned. Every game you learn something. You know what I learned that game? We were 35-8 and got beat. You know what I learned? Don't sit on the ball. I mean, baby, play every down like you're behind. That's what I did from then on. I played every down like we were behind,
All right. I'm going to steal your microphone.
Thank you very much. Good to see everybody.
Give it up for Coach Bobby Bowden.